Coming from the information, Google plans a new frozen chip to run its AI models much more efficiently. So I think this is an interesting story to take a look at from the whole concept of AI architecture and AI systems. So basically what we're going to be talking about with this particular frozen chip is the concept of literally burning the models or burning components of the models directly onto the chip itself. So remember, whenever you're dealing with systems architecture, the further things are physically from each other, the more latency there is going to be, and so the lower the performance, basically the slower the system is going to be, right? So the idea is when you have the CPU here, and you have the RAM over here, and you have the storage over there, as things have to communicate with each other, right? They actually have to go over this bus system, and the farther that bus system, is, the longer that is, the slower everything will be. And so that's one of the reasons why we now see things like systems on a chip, unified memory architecture, that type of thing, is basically what companies have been doing over the past couple of years, is they've been trying to burn essentially everything onto the exact same wafer, right? If everything is on the same chip, it's a hell of a lot closer to everything else. You massively decrease latency, you can massively increase bus speed because everything is on the same wafer, and you get a hell of a lot better performance. Well, one of the issues is when you deal with the AI world is that you still have to load up the model. So whatever model that you're going to be using, that still has to get loaded up. Information still has to be stored places and the whole nine yards. What's interesting is some of these companies are trying to play with the idea of what if you actually burn the model directly into the silicon. So now it's not off on its storage somewhere else or whatever else. It is literally burned onto the silicon itself. I do believe this is what Grok was doing. Not Elon Musk's Grok. The other Grok, there was a Grok inference chip company in Europe that was doing really cool things, and then NVIDIA gutted them. So basically, there is this company creating these really cool inference chips, low cost. Basically, they could build out data centers incredibly quickly. NVIDIA looked at them and said, wow, we want to buy that company. But they realized that they would run into trust issues. They would run into issues with laws around monopoly if they purchased another chip company that might be a competitor to them. So what they decided to do instead is they just went in and gutted the company. They essentially paid the founders a shit ton of money to come over and work at NVIDIA. It's like, here's a lot of NVIDIA stock and here's a lot of money. Why do you come to work for us? And so Grok, the company, the shell, literally the shell of the company, was left to rot in Europe, as everything else was scooped up by NVIDIA. But I do believe that they were going down this route of trying to burn the models directly onto the chips themselves, basically to try to massively increase performance. So it's interesting that Google is looking at trying to do the exact same thing. And this kind of shows us where we're going to in the world of artificial intelligence. And it also does bring an interesting question of what is the AI stack going to look like in the future. So right now we have the Chinese AI stack, right? All open source, right? You can download it and run it on almost anything. One of the curious things that we're seeing coming out of the Western world is basically trying to create a closed stack, not simply just through the software itself, but also through the hardware. Right? What happens when we get to a period of time when you might be able to freely download models? You may be able to freely download software. You just simply cannot access any of the hardware on your own that would allow you to run this software. I think that's kind of an interesting thing going on in the Western world. And we're going to see how that winds up at the end of the day. But if we go take a look at this, Google is working on a new server chip that would directly integrate the blueprint of its Gemini AI model, enabling the company to serve its AI models to users much more efficiently, according to two people with knowledge of the matter. Google intends the new chip, informally dubbed Frozen V2, to help it address a major shortage in AI computing capacity that has fueled internal tensions and compelled Google Cloud to turn down deals with outside customers. Google employees working on the chip have have projected that it could be 6 to 10 times more efficient than the newest version of Google's existing line of homegrown AI chips when it launches, based on the number of tokens it can serve per unit of power, according to the People. And so that's one of the other interesting things to be thinking about. Now, we talk about these data center build outs, right? We need so many data centers, and we can't build enough data centers on land, so we're going to send all these data centers into space. And we just need more and more and more AI data centers. One of my arguments with this is that we are just this whole AI tech stack is very immature in any number of ways. The models themselves are very immature. The hardware we're running everything on is very immature. And one of my arguments that I've been saying for a long time now is I don't understand why we're putting trillions of dollars into building infrastructure that is literally going to be obsolete in years. I'm not talking about the servers are going to be obsolete in years. The data centers are going to be obsolete in years. We are going to find better ways for building all of this garbage. And basically, once we figure out a better way to build it, then we're just going to have a lot of data centers. We're going to be scratching our heads, basically, why do we have this particular data center? And so that's one of the interesting things to be thinking about too, like with these Google chips. If it can be 6 to 10 times more efficient, think about that. How many fewer data centers do we need? And this is 2026, so these will actually be released in 2028. So, anyways, just think about this, right? So this can be up to 10 times more efficient, and then the next things are going to be more efficient than that, and the next things are going to be more efficient than that, and the next things are going to be more efficient than that. At what point do we get to a world where all the power of an AI data center resides in something the size of your smartphone or whatever else, right? I mean, that seemed like a joke 20 years ago. But now think about how much power is in your iPhone. And this is one of the reasons that I get so concerned with all of this AI build out, especially before we've proven the real value of the AI build out, right? Think most of the AI demand right now is for free users. People that are not paying for the service many times don't even want to pay for the service. They're either getting the services shoved down their throat, or it's free, so they use it. What the hell? So we are building out all of this capacity mainly for people that don't want to pay a dime for this crap. It's not worth them paying anything for it. And so the question is we're going to build out based off of our architecture standards today. We're going to figure out where the actual value of artificial intelligence is. And I think the actual value for all this technology is going to be a lot less than we're told it is, just by how it's going to work out. And then we're going to go to a couple of years from now when the efficiency has been increased by such a massive degree that the idea of needing all of these AI data centers seems absolutely and utterly ridiculous. And so this is one of, again, the core arguments. When I talk about the idiocy of artificial intelligence, this isn't some religious thing or some Luddite thing or whatever else. It's just, again, I've been in tech for 30 years. There's a way this shit works. Oh Lordy, there's a way this works. There's just a way this works. There's just cycles. We've seen the cycles so many times before. But anyways, and so yeah, so with these chips, it looks like they're going to be a hell of a lot more efficient. And again, the idea you specifically design a chip to only run either one model or one set of models. You then burn a lot of the instruction sets directly onto the chip itself, and you are going to get a massive amount of efficiency gain. That's just kind of how it works out, right? I think that's interesting where Jensen Huang last year was trying to talk up the value of NVIDIA. And one of the things he said with NVIDIA GPUs, right? NVIDIA GPUs are the most compatible GPUs for any company, right? They can work with the largest number of operating systems, they can work with the largest amount of hardware, and they can work with the largest amount of models or whatever else, right? And that is why NVIDIA is so valuable. But as I've been arguing before, right? When you're building out these AI data centers, I'm not going to be, buying 50 different versions of servers. I'm not going to be running multiple different operating systems. I'm not going to be running a zillion models. You're going to build a data center to spec. And really with clustering and everything else, basically that spec is going to be more or less everything looks identical. I don't need a generalist GPU. And that's the thing to think about in technology world. The more generalist a piece of technology is, the less efficiently it's going to run for any specific process, right? It can do an adequate job on anything, but it never does a great job on anything, right? So if you have these companies coming out and creating silicon that is specifically designed to only do one task, then they're just simply going to do better than the generalist hardware. The frozen name comes from the idea of permanently etching part of the model onto the silicon. Frozen V2 would have some of the decisions for Google's Gemini models built in, reducing the number of steps the chip must take and the amount of data it has to move around. One of the interesting things with this is I guess everything is not being burned in. So I do believe with Grok and some of the other things, the entire model itself was actually burned in the chip. One of the interesting things with these particular chips is the concept of they understand how their models are architected and they can design new models. So their concept is finding the components of their models and their systems that will be reusable, right? So whatever version of Gemini it is, there are instruction sets that all models of Gemini use. And then, if they know that, and hopefully it's well documented, everybody knows what's going on, when they build new Gemini models, then they can maintain those instruction sets. And so the idea here, too, is that it's specifically designed for Gemini models, but they should be able to upgrade Gemini models over time with these chips because a certain amount of required instructions will be burned onto the chip itself, and these other more flexible instructions that will get pulled in for memory or storage or whatever. And overall, this will come together to give a lot better performance. So, anyways, that seems to be what's going on with these Frozen 2 chips, and I think it makes a lot of sense. It's like, yep, yeah. This is, as I've said many times in the past month, this is the technology world. I understand. This makes sense. I do think the big question, though, if you're a technology professional, especially if you're new in the technology world, is the whole question of how siloed are technology stacks going to become over the next 10 years, right? So there's something called convergence. So if you go back to 2005, there was this concept of convergence. So before this time period, telephone systems used their own electronics, their own communication protocols, their own wiring, the whole nine yards. Surveillance systems used their own wiring and systems. Computers use their own wiring systems. Access control systems use their own wiring, right? So basically, again, when I went in and I installed a telephone system, we would run Cat3 cable. You would use a digital PBX, and there's a whole way of doing a telephone system. If you did access control systems, that was low voltage wire. Waco. Anyways, they had a proprietary protocol for that, and that was its own thing. Computers, all that kind of thing, right? And so it was their own worlds. One of the interesting things that happened with convergence is basically the idea was, hey, all of this stuff is basically computerized devices, and so can't we make all of this simply work on IPv4 Ethernet? Right? And so that's where we got voice over IP telephone systems. And that's where we got digital surveillance systems. And we got IP access control systems and a whole bunch of other things. Basically, the idea is, look, why don't we just run one set of cables throughout a facility and then through VLANs or whatever else, from there, separate out all the components into their own networks. And that was what's called a convergence. And so what's been really cool over the past 2 decades is we have been living in this converged world, right? The idea that software should be able to basically be able to run on anything, that anything should be able to communicate with everything else, that you should be able to very easily be able to access hardware and software to make things run, right? That's kind of been the world that we've been in. What's interesting with this whole new AI revolution, a lot of the revolution in designing silicon and all that, is we're actually starting to see that the world is going back into a much more siloed environment where literally Google has a hardware stack, right? So for the last while, right, there's been the Intel stack and the ARM stack and the RISC-V stack, right? There's a couple of different, processors or whatever out there, but it's only been a few, and you know what's going on. What's becoming very interesting, though, is think about this. What happens when Google has a silo? Like hardware, everything. There's a Google hardware stack and a Meta hardware stack and an XAI hardware stack and an IBM already has this hardware stack, right? It does become like an interesting question of like where do we go with our careers with that? Because like with telephone systems, right? So I was certified for telephone systems, and it was a weird certification, right? Most people were not certified. So because that's the thing, like if you're an MCSE, so you had the Cisco CCNA networking, and you had your MCSE, MCSE and CCNA that went together very well, right? That was a nice combination there. The thing was, telephone systems were all the way they were just an entirely different thing. Like the only people I got certified in telephone systems, it was just like this weird because they were their own. They were just their own. They were just their own world that I just happened to get certified in. Well, the thing is, once VoIP came around, once you stop having to deal with 110 blocks and 66 blocks and that type of thing, once we got to that converged environment with IPv4 and Cat5, then all of a sudden your MCSE or your CCNA can handle your telephone systems fine. No big deal. And so think about when we start breaking that apart again. Think about when we go from a converged world to this world where everything becomes ever more siloed. What does that look like for technology professionals? Ugly. Ugly is the answer. Anyways, so what do you think about this? What do you think about Google's new frozen chips where they're going to be burning specific instruction sets directly onto the chip itself, getting 6 to 10x efficiency gains? Are you still excited about all of those AI data centers when you hear about the amazing efficiency gains that people are figuring out damn near every day? I don't know. Put your thoughts down below. If you like these episodes, do remember they're on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. The link is down below. If you want to follow me on LinkedIn, there's a link down there too. With that, see y'all later.